Hi, and welcome to Wine Voices, where we explore the people, trends, and ideas shaping the future of wine. Today, I'm very happy to be talking to Yannick Benjamin, who is an award-winning sommelier, the co-founder of Wine on Wheels, and the co-founder of Beaupierre Wines Spirits in New York, in his home neighborhood of Hell's Kitchen. Yannick has built a career around wine and hospitality and making sure more people can fully participate in both. So, Yannick, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor.
We recently just talked about how the last time we were together was in Verona and what
Yes.
an amazing place that is. It's always nice to see you there, but also nice to see
Yes,
you
indeed.
here.
Very good to see you. Thank you for having me on again. I'm excited.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I think I'm going to throw up a little bit of a grapefruit here. Hopefully, it's an easy question.
Yeah.
Just tell
Please.
me a little bit about your background and how you ended up getting into wine.
Yeah, thank you. So both of my parents are from France and they both came here um at a fairly young age. My dad was about 23, my mom was about 19 years old. My mom is from Bordeaux, my dad's from Brittany. And so my father, along with his two brothers, they were in the restaurant business. Ideally, in their world, they would have preferred, I mean, at least for both of my parents, they would have preferred that I would have taken on a path of like maybe being a lawyer, maybe a politician, somewhere where I'm working in an office with air conditioning, but not maybe working in restaurants like I do now in hospitality. But they weren't against it. They were very supportive. And so I just always enjoyed listening to the stories of my father and my two uncles. They a lot of times would come over to the house, have Sunday dinner because that was their day off. Traditionally, restaurants, especially at the higher end, were always closed on Sundays, and it just sounded really exciting. And so I started working in restaurants very young, and it was just a place where I just loved and I thrived. I didn't do really well in school or anything else. I did. I was a big athlete, but that was kind of my thing. That was my jam, and I stuck with it.
Nice. Nice. But so the restaurant scene, definitely got
Yes,
into your genes,
yes.
into your DNA from an early age. But when was it that, wine really started to feel like something separate even from just the restaurant experience? I mean, did you
So I
feel,
was
being that your mom is from Bordeaux and you have, maybe one of the greatest wine regions in the world in your DNA, did you feel a connection early on, or did it take longer?
So I was very lucky. At a young age, I really had I had this great privilege to spend my summers in France, and so it was very common to be with my family, especially on my mother's side in Bordeaux, to just go knock on the winery's door and pick up a couple of cases of wine. And even at a younger age, especially when I was 13 at this property called Chateau Giscourt, we went into the basement, into the cellar, and I just remember the smell of the fermentation, the smell of the cedar, the wood, that mustiness of the cellar. So that was already one part. And then at 18, 19 years old, I started working at a restaurant called Le Cirque, which was on 455
Mm.
Madison Avenue. And at that time, it just seemed like, the epicenter, the pinnacle of the world. And everybody was there, all the celebrities. It was really kind of the center of attention. And this is during the big boom of the economy, the internet. So people were just spending so much money. And I was very lucky to be under I had a mentor. His name was Ralph Hersum, young American wine director. And he just kind of took me under his wings. And so originally, what I thought I was going to do was be this sort of like Maître d' general manager of a restaurant. But then it quickly kind of changed into me. Oh, this is what I really want to do, is be part of this world of wine and beverage. And immediately after, I started taking wine classes, and that was really just how it all began.
So beautiful. I love this. I love the thought of like a young you with your family running around Bordeaux and knocking on cellar doors.
Yes, indeed.
Well, can you tell us a little bit then about how we get to where you are now? So you had an accident,
Mhm.
and
Correct. Yeah. Right. So I had an accident, a car accident, I should say, in 2003 at the age of 25 years old. And so I am currently paralyzed from that, but living a very fulfilling life, but certainly with obstacles, like I think everybody faces them, and especially in New York City. But still, I'm very lucky to be living in such a great city like New York, and certainly I realize the good fortune that I have, despite you know having to navigate some of these circumstances. But I was able to sort of transition. It was certainly not easy, being a non-disabled person working in the hospitality wine industry, and then transitioning into or staying in the industry, but working on a wheelchair full time. And I was able to do that. Certainly not easy. A lot of life lessons, but certainly grateful for all those experiences, and definitely, tested my equanimity. But looking back, I'm very grateful for those experiences. And now I'm the director of wine for a big private club. I have a wine store. At one point, I had a restaurant for a couple of years, a wine bar restaurant called Contento. And it was a great experience because we really tried to practice, and I think we did a really good job of practicing social accessibility, as well as making sure that everything in the restaurant was physically accessible, but also, representing producers and regions and grapes that were probably not talked enough about. And,
Mm.
we try to make sure that our prices were accessible, because wine can be quite expensive. So all of that was within that package.
Yeah, so that's maybe something that it's interesting. Well, first of all, I think you were a little overly humble. I mean, you've done something very amazing. I think many industries have strides to make in becoming more accessible, but hospitality was not designed for, disabled workers. And so you've yourself changed a lot of that and have persevered so much. So kudos to you on that. I like how you're talking about, the physical challenge that you were experiencing, you brought into the wine space too. So you didn't want, you were trying to move through, feelings of less accessibility, and you were trying to do away with that barrier in the wine you were presenting too.
Yeah, I think that for me, especially in the world of wine, I what I try to translate to people is the experience and the emotions of what a lot of producers, a lot of regions, a lot of grapes, and wines, when I taste what they bring to me.
Mm,
And that's simply what I'm trying to talk about, right? And I think that if I can share that with other people, then I think I'm doing my job the way I think it should be done. And so
yeah.
that's all it really does for me. And like I said, like every so often it does happen where I have a smell or I taste something, and it reminds me when I was 13 years old in that
Mm.
cellar in Margot, with my family members.
That's so beautiful. Would you say that becoming disabled kind of changed your understanding of hospitality?
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, I think there's a certain humility that comes with it, and it forces you to really understand not to take things for granted. And I think in many ways, even I remember a few hours before my car accident had happened, I remember running to go get my car because it was pouring rain. It was at a garage, and saying, "Oh my God, I need to get back to like jogging a little bit more," because I was a big athlete and I hadn't worked out for a couple of weeks. I guess I was just working a lot. So I guess I never. In one hand, I guess we do take things for granted. It's just human nature. On the other hand, I think what gives me peace today is saying to myself that I understood how fortunate I was to be 6'2", to I never had any health issues. I
Mm.
was extremely healthy, and then the car accident happened. But I also now in this position, upon reflection, I realize that there are so many people. There's well over 60 million Americans that identify as having a disability, whether visible or invisible, who I also know really love food and they love wine and they
Mm.
love hospitality and somehow they want to be a part of it. And, of course, I'm just one person, but if I can bring in a few people and be part of that world, that's the mission that I'm really trying to accomplish.
I love that. I love that so much. And that's at the core of what wine does. I
Yes.
think it's an invitation to be curious and to be in conversation and to be genuinely open to the person you're drinking it with.
No, but of course, and I think that what wine does, it has this innate ability, and I just said it a few minutes ago, but to transport you into a place, either in the past, a very happy moment, or it forces you to put you in a moment of contemplative meditation,
Mm.
which I've had many of those moments, and they're very important, and they've allowed me to streamline some decisions that I need to make or contemplate the consequences of my inactions or the
Mm.
consequences of my actions or things that I've said or did not say. And I think wine has that real beautiful aspect to it. And again, it's something that we need to talk more about because I think it's one of the few beverages that really has that innate ability to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see anybody doing that with like, a Diet Coke.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly.
Can I ask, because, the
Of course.
words like inclusive and accessible get used a lot, but what do they really mean to you? What does it mean to you, especially in the context of hospitality?
But listen, I mean, I think that if you ever meet people who love wine and who are part of the hospitality industry, generally speaking, they're some of the most generous people you'll ever meet, right? And I do think that in the world of wine, we've kind of have forgotten those roots in many ways. And because the prices have gotten so crazy, and we've
Mm.
gotten so obsessed with showcasing all these blue chip producers and these bottle shots on Instagram and all of that kind of stuff. And again, and I hate to sound so repetitive, but we should talk about wine being this sort of like magic potion because it's a
Mm.
magic potion that makes you feel good. And it should be something that should be drunk in a kind of communal setting with other people. And then you're all coming together like the ancient Greeks did in the ancient Agora out in Athens. And they would have their own symposium because the word symposium means a gathering of minds drinking wine, and they would talk. And this is what we need to do more of. And I think that's what's really important. And instead of like falling into this rabbit hole of like whether wine is healthy or not healthy or whatever it is. No, we should talk about that wine first and foremost it brings people together for a communal aspect, to be social, and I think we're not being
Mhm.
social enough in today's world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything there's not a lot of things in this world, right, that are totally black and white. And so when you, like you said, consider the even what we won't debate health, but we do know undebatable that loneliness is bad and that being with people, being in community matters for somebody's physical and social and mental health.
100%. And like I said, some of the greatest moments I've ever had. Anyone who knows me, whenever I can, I try to go to Rome, and whenever I'm in Rome, I do like the Roman Zoo, and you're there and you're staring at the Roman Forum, and I'm having a simple glass of Frascati, and that
Mm.
Frascati is like the greatest glass of wine because
Yeah.
it's giving me a certain emotion, and I'm there with my loved one, and there you just say, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And it's all part of the package, right? I think, it's not that I think that it's some of the greatest conversations, some of the greatest moments have been with a glass of wine, whether it's a $10 glass of wine or 100 or 200 doesn't make a difference. But for me, that glass of wine was good. And it was certainly good at that moment based on the people that I was at and based on what my eyes were seeing and what I was smelling and what I was feeling.
Yeah, it's even if you're not talking about, the kind of geeky technical details of the wine, you don't have to know anything about that to kind of recognize that this beverage, like I said, more than anything else, Diet Coke certainly isn't doing this, has encourages you to slow down and be present
Yes.
in your surroundings.
Exactly. I think that out of a lot, I mean, there are other beverages for sure, but I think it's fair to put wine in a category of meditation. It's a beverage of
Mm,
meditation. It's a moment where you sit down, and even if to do it by yourself with a book, or if you just want to catch your breath and you want to stare at the blue sky,
mm.
then you should do that. But this is what I think my wine has always been and will always be. And people just need to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've now returned back to the neighborhood where you grew up to build
Yeah.
Beaupierre Wine and Spirits in Hell's Kitchen. So, what does it mean to create something in the neighborhood that raised you?
Well, in wine, right? We know that a Chardonnay grown in Burgundy is going to be different than a Chardonnay grown in Chile or in California. Um, they're obviously common denominators because of the DNA, but the soil, the microclimate, the culture, how they grow the grapes, the vines, whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
And I think for me, my terroir is, yes, my blood is French by my parents, but how I was cultivated, is Hell's Kitchen. And
Yeah.
so to kind of go back there and to be able to open up a small little wine store along with my wife, in a neighborhood that I am so proud to be from. It's again, it's just the universe, the cosmos has been so good to me to allow me to
Mm.
be able to do that. And it's a great neighborhood. It's incredibly diverse. We have some great customers and who love tasting wines. We have wines from Turkey. We have wines from Lebanon. We have wine. It's not just wines that are from France or from Spain and in Italy, but it's wines from all around the world. And I think people are always excited to explore and taste something new because I think both my wife and I, what we try to pride ourselves on, that a lot of the wines that are in this small little store are regions that we have been to, producers that we have met or we built
Mm.
some kind of connection with. And I think that's really important because I know this has been said before. Storytelling is one thing, but when people can feel the other person's experience because they actually have a hands-on approach or hands-on experience with it, it really does change that. There's that movie Good Will Hunting where there's what
Mm.
Robin Williams, who he has that famous scene with Will Matt Damon, and Robin Williams is telling, and of course, Matt Damon in the movie, he's the genius. He knows everything,
Mm.
right? He's just, and Robin Williams tells Matt Damon is like, I know that you know everything. There's no doubt, there's no question about your genius. And you can tell me everything about Michelangelo and his life's ambitions, but you can't possibly tell me what it's like to be in the Sistine Chapel, to stare at it and to smell and to actually feel it. And so that's
Mm.
sort of, I think, where we kind of separate ourselves. I'm not saying better, but I think you can kind of feel that emotion when we talk about those wines because a lot of these places we've made the effort to try to go there and really experience that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's the stories that can be told from, the personal experience of being with a winemaker, being in their cellar, walking their vineyards is so different than any marketing collateral you could ever get.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree with you.
I love to hear you talk about having your shop here because I am born and raised in San Francisco, and for me,
Very
like
cool.
San Francisco is like a it's like a friend in my life. Like it's like a best friend. And so I
Yeah.
feel like, there's this energy and that when you're back, when every time I go back there, it's like
Mm.
we're here again. And so
Yeah.
I really feel what you're saying when you say how special it is to have this wine shop for the community that, was been such a big part of your life.
No, but it's the same feeling for me. Absolutely.
Okay, you have opened and served many memorable bottles over your career, probably
Mhm.
even more than most of us ever will. And can you think of, maybe just today, it doesn't have to always be the one that you call out, but can you think of like a very special bottle that you've opened that has a story that you just love to tell over and over?
Oh my gosh, geez. I will tell you one of my favorite moments within the past years. I we went to go meet Jean-Louis Chave in his cellar. This was now, gosh, is it almost 2 years ago now? And we were in his cellar. We got there at about 10 a.m. And so we were there for at least 3 hours. So we're underground. It's like, it's dark but beautiful, and it's like so perfect. And we're talking about wine, but it's very peaceful. It's very serene. It's almost like you're in this kind of like you're in church, I guess, And
Mm.
so we're tasting a million different wines, and he opens up one bottle of wine from his cellar, gives it to us blind. I mean, all of us like, wow, this wine's unbelievable. It's so, gosh, it's unbelievable. Just kind of like
Yeah, yeah.
it was the cream of the crop. And so it was one of those rare bottles that he makes on occasion, and it's the Cuvée Catalan Hermitage, and it was 1995. And it was my first. I had never had that wine, but let alone 1995. So this is, had a couple of
Mm.
decades to it, and to be in the cellar, which I would consider with one of the world's greatest winemakers, honestly. And he's so humble, and he's, again, talk about generosity to open up a wine that such a high demand for it
Mm.
in the market, and to be there with the actual person that made the wine, that saw it from the grapes being grown on the vine, overseeing it to when it gets pruned, to the fermentation, to the bottling. This was a very special moment for me, for sure, and I think I look forward to many more, because even though I've been doing this for a long time, I felt like such a kid, was like,
Mm.
I felt like I was a young kid watching my favorite athlete hit a home run or hit the game winning shot, but I was somehow part of that moment. So it was, yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, I love that. I love that analogy that, you feel like you're, there's something that you're like, oh, you're gonna cheer for the rest of your
Yeah.
life.
Yes.
And yeah, wine, it does that, right? I can't, again, I don't mean to throw any other beverage under the bus, but I can't think of, not
No.
even a beverage. I can't even think of any other, maybe a sporting event. A sport. I do have memories of sporting events like that. When you see your team
Yes.
win a championship
Yes.
or something like that. It's a
Yes.
memory that lives in your heart in a way that you can recall so beautifully. But I can't think of many other things besides the sporting
Mm.
event and wine that do that, that
Mhm.
transport you to a moment
Mhm.
that, stays with you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Complete that. Yeah. Completely agree with you.
Mm. Well, I'm sorry to say that we have to wrap it up here because I could talk to you
Oh,
about this all day long.
no, no, okay. Short and
Yannick,
sweet. That's why it's good.
I want to thank you so much for your time and your stories and all the work that you do. Thank you for your support of Come Over October, and maybe I'll see you at Vinitaly USA.
I certainly hope so. And thank you for the opportunity. It was really great talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. Well, have a great weekend, and like I said, hope to see you soon.
Yes. Thank you, Barbara.
Cheers.